Well, today, in the big idea, we're talking about how living on mission for Christ affects every area of our life. So I invited these three to come and sit in. I wanted to throw some questions at them because I really see them looking to do that in their life. And so if you haven't met Sidney, he's usually at the Morgan Hill campus. Sometimes you'll see him on stage. He helps with our safety team and doing a number of other things, and has been just really bought into the mission. And Ben has been with us for the last year or so.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see what God's doing in your life. I look forward to you sharing a little bit about that. And he's been helping site coordinate around the campuses. And then Debbie, a lot of you know who she is because you talk to her when you call the office, and she oversees all of our office here at Community Christian. And truthfully, she gives so many more hours than we even can pay her for. And we are so grateful for all that you give and all that you're doing. And so, again, I'm watching the three of you live out the mission of Jesus in your life in different ways. So I just created some questions, and I wanted people in the church just to hear practically kind of what this has looked like in your life. So I'll just start with this. We use the mission here. Our mission is helping people find their way back to God. Jesus comes and he says, I come to seek and save the lost. So really, the mission of the church is Jesus' mission, that people would be drawn to him. So I would love to hear from you as you connected with Community Christian at different points over the last few years. Like, why are you bought into that mission? Why does that mission matter to you? So Debbie, I'm going to throw it out there to you first. Like, why has that mission become important to you?
Well, I think it's important because generally people want to belong. They want to have hope. They want to be seen. And I think that mission statement of helping people find their way back to God, I think it's a good cornerstone to ask yourself, my actions, my thoughts, my, challenges even, are they helping to lead people back to God? So I think it's a good measure, like a yardstick, to say. Somebody once offered that to me. And so that's why I feel that as a Christian, that's my job to offer to them.
Oh, I love that. I love the idea of a measure for that. Ben, what about you?
I just feel like our mission brings people together under one purpose. And so I moved up here last January, didn't really know anybody. And so I just immediately started going to church here, and I felt just connected with everybody right away. And then starting to serve, I just felt a sense of accountability, just people holding me accountable to be at church and just to really live out the mission. I feel like that was probably the biggest part for my growth in this church and really seeing it played out.
I love that. What kind of goes what Debbie say, right? The sense of belonging, and then you're invited in to be part of this mission, which is Jesus' mission, right? And so it becomes life-giving for us. So Sidney, you've been a part of the local church for a long time, served in different ways. What is that like for you now as you feel like, hey, I'm bought into this mission? Why does that matter to you?
I always think about how to help people find their way back to God. What that means to me is, I think that it says come back to God, and I think that God says He formed us and knew us before we were born, so we're actually coming back home.
Yeah,
and it's a 180, right? So as we venture out of that mission, I think it's inviting people to come back to where they belong.
Yeah,
to their true identity, their true selves, and come back to the Creator that created them.
Yeah, we're inviting people to come back home, right?
Yeah.
It's fun. We talk about sometimes, like in this mission, right? We watch people connect, belong, and then come alive. Like spiritually, people come alive, or, Scripture says out of the darkness into the light. And the more I think about our mission and inviting people into our mission, in the years that I've been here at Community, the more I love it, right? And believe it in the way we word it. This is worth giving my time to. It's worth giving my life to. It's worth inviting people to be a part of it, right? And I think we need to understand, as we talk about today, right, is not just for Community Christians, not something people at Community, if you're a member or attender, just live out here. It's something you live out in the other areas of your life. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. But I'd love to hear from you, like, where's a moment that you feel like you've been able to live out the mission of Jesus by serving someone else, blessing someone else, or maybe, how it happened to you. Like Ben, and that's part of your story this last year, where you feel people live that out towards you. But why don't you start with that? So what does that look like for you?
I just have I invited Jesus into my day-to-day life and everything I do, but specifically last year, Jamie really brought me in. And so just on the serving team and just kind of taking me under his wing and showing me what it means to be a Christian and live it out, both in the church in the family home and just in life. So that was really a bit like the big impact moment was when he brought me in and just showed me what it means to be a Christian.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. You're talking about Jeremy Smith, who's on our team, right? And you guys have built a great friendship. I heard some people, as we were talking about that question a minute ago, why does helping people find their way back to God matter? People say, because that's what happened to me. And now I want to be part, I want this to happen for others. Like the people I love, I want them to know this. So Debbie and Sidney, again, you have both served the local church, not just community, but other churches throughout your life. It's been important to you to serve God's family. Like, where have you seen God use you? And I'm asking you kind of to brag on yourselves a little bit, but where in little way or big way have you just seen like, hey, as I've served others, if I lived this mission out, it's been a blessing?
Well, I've always felt like I grew up in church, and I've always felt like I was, I used to say that I was a rose in a field of thorns, because I, for some reason, always end up with non-Christians. And they always have me say the grace at dinner table or whatever they have questions, they always ask me, which is great. I think it's great. But I think now for today, I think it's just an everyday conversation, really. I think as we just talk to people, I think whenever they need something, God will provide it for them through that conversation. And they'll say things like, man, I really needed that. Thank you. And I don't expect it, but it's kind of nice to have that moment with them. Mm-hmm. So I find that in just conversating with people every single day, it just seems to kind of, there's always a moment, that, will come about where they'll feel blessed in some way.
Yeah. Where you can encourage them in the Lord, right? Or that spiritual conversation will come by them.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right. There's a lot of people in the community because someone stepped out and said, hey, would you like to attend with me? And some of that came out of just everyday conversation. Yeah. It just sent somebody's need. Mm-hmm. Debbie, what about you?
As I was thinking about it, and then when Sidney was just talking, it's like, to me, it's not such a, like a wild moment, but there's times when, like, I was in law enforcement, and I was, that's not a place where you really talk about faith a whole lot around the coffee, the coffee, water coffee.
Yeah.
But one time I had a dispatcher come into my office, and she sat down and she goes, I know you're the praying type. Can you pray for me? Because I'm going through something. Or when I used to get together I used to sell Tupperware, and we would get together for a meal, and everybody would say, oh, Debbie prays. So she gets to pray the grace. And but I think the most impactful time when I found that my actions speak louder than sometimes my words, my teenage granddaughter texted me actually in the middle of the day. She goes, hey, Grammy. And I said, yeah, Avery? And she said, hey, my friend's taking her driving test. Can you pray for her?
Wow.
So it's like, it's not always the big, wow moments, but it's like how you live your faith, how you conduct yourself, how you just day-to-day living, and people can see that through you, and they want that from the same thing that you have. Or if they know that you go to church, it gives you that opportunity. Hey, will you pray with me? Sure. And then you can come and pray yourself.
Say it's like that phrase where they say, preach the gospel or use words when necessary.
Yes.
Because it should be your life and your living, right?
Yeah. So. Yeah. And you're not standing up at the water cooler preaching. Mm-hmm. Right? Or not in your business, right? With construction management, but people start to recognize when you're just living for Jesus, life looks a little bit different. They can ask spiritual questions, and you just don't know when the Holy Spirit's working on people, right? And the fact that that's open, or when you recognize that in a conversation, or all of a sudden you get that phone call, hey, will you pray with me? They don't know who else to go to, but something is happening and stirring in their life, right? And it's just in the simple way. Sometimes we think about living on mission. Oh man, I got to go over the top and I got to display some big thing. Yeah. It's really simple day to day with people in our homes and, in our workplace. I want to ask this question because, sometimes there's challenges. So for you, as you've tried to live out your faith, right? Not just at church and the way that you serve the local church, but, in your day to day life, what have been some of the challenges with that? Or what are some of the challenges people face with that?
I would just say kind of going astray and just kind of losing focus on what really matters. So like being at work, just kind of being consumed by that and just forgetting that Christ exists, or I have a faith community that I can go back to, or if I have my faith to fall back on. So just really remembering where you come from and what your truth is. And so, and the truth is Jesus. So just remembering that.
Yeah. So letting, that identity really kind of focus in on the other things you do, right? That's the foundation as you go off to work, as you go into family life or friend life. So Debbie, thoughts on that? Have you been in the marketplace over the years?
Yeah, I think that just life gets in the way of, you sitting down and, spending time in the Word, the stressors of work, the stressors of family, raising a family, still having adult children. I still, worry about them. But I think it's really important to just really quiet your mind if you can and take that time to focus if you can. Just be quiet. It's hard when you're, working and you've got deadlines and, jobs to do and things like that. But, sometimes you have to just realize, if you didn't have the job was a gift from the Lord. And at least I feel like it is now in my retirement. I had some skills that I was able to bring here. And, I'm glad I'm not doing the other job anymore. But, it gives me that hope that there is something more to be able to, be quiet and listen for the Lord.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, I think just staying in the Word constantly, it's necessary. So I think, whenever I feel like I'm drifting from the Word or spending time with God and studying, I always feel like my emotions start to get a little bit more out of control. And, the flesh kind of tends to want to do it at once. So you got to rein it back in. But I've been trying to study personally, just, I'll take a topic and stay on it for a month. Just keep going deeper and deeper until it really clicks. But with that, I think daily scriptures and, going to the seminars that we have here have been really, really good for me. The Bible studies and the home groups and all those different things. So I think staying connected is probably one of the best ways to, deal with those challenges that you have every day. So, yeah.
Well, another challenge is you guys are a lot younger than I am. And I'll tell you, it's I can't do all as much as I used to do when I was in my 30s, 40s, and 50s. So for me, that's some of the challenge too, not to be able to do the things that I want to do because, just of my age. And, it's like, I get tired. It takes me longer to get, rebound after a long time. So it's really important that I have that quiet time to be able to get back into the Word.
Yeah.
So.
No, absolutely. Any other thoughts as we kind of close out this series on, hey, we're being resurrected people. And that just doesn't happen when we gather with the church. That's who we are. That's our identity. That's where we live from, right? And so we have to create that space to be present with the Lord in our daily life, to be at church together, corporately, to worship together, to encourage one another, so we can live it out in Silicon Valley and with our families. Any other thoughts on that as we close this out?
I would say the biggest change, or when I saw the biggest change in my life, was when I just started reading the Bible every day and just getting into the Word. Because before that, I had a strong belief in what I believed in, or a strong idea of what I believed in, but really being in the Word and being able to speak to the Word, I saw the most growth in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been really thankful for the worship that we have. I spend a little time on the road and I will put on, the message and just Christian music. And that helps to keep me focused and in the Word, as well as all of the things that you guys have mentioned, the groups that, being in the Word. But, I'm thankful for the worship that we have here that is, very impactful. And we hear it a lot. People say the worship was great this week. So.
Yeah, there's something powerful about being together. That's why Scripture calls us to that. And so, again, this idea of being resurrected people, right? It shapes our identity, shapes the way we think, it shapes the way we act. And we're called onto this mission, right? We belong. We're invited in. There's something that we're living out. There's something that, if you're a follower of Jesus, that you've found in Jesus. You found your way back to God, which is your home and where you belong, right? The relationship that He desires for us. And we want other people to experience that. And we want people to be able to live that mission out here with Community Christian when we gather, but in the marketplace, right? In their dating relationships, in their home, as a grandparent, right? The mission doesn't stop and our worship doesn't stop. When we gather, that's one aspect of worship, but how we glorify God day to day is part of our worship too. And that means in every aspect of what we're doing, right? Everything we're doing should be, looked at through the lens of who Jesus is in our life and our understanding of our identity as resurrected people. So it's been so fun to do this series with you. I'm so thankful for you out there watching this and people like Debbie and Ben and Sidney who are serving, who are living on mission. And it's amazing to see what God is doing here at Community because people are willing to live on the mission of Jesus together. So thanks for joining us for this.